Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Elizabeth as the Orc Count Eta and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
With the excitement of your idol, Sylvia Tome, being in the equation, Eta, you are a more lively orc accountant than perhaps we are used to. What was back in the Empire of Numbers, in your sort of dormitory and in your cohort? What was the general vibe about Sylvia Tome? How did obviously you're a big fan. I think again there's a very easy case to be made for her being an easy person to idolize for the Empire of Numbers. Also, again, to be clear, like the Empire and Apex get along. They're not they're not at odds. There are, the quirks, but this is a very Ontario example, but a little bit like the Stratford Festival and the Shaw Festival, where it's like they're both theater festivals in Ontario that are both successful. They have specific mandates. They chirp each other, but at the same time, we're just kind of happy they're both nearby. And that they both exist. So what do you think the beyond you, what was the, like, were you par for the course in terms of your excitement about Sylvia? Was she a cult icon? Was she a pop icon? What was the vibe?
I think she was extremely popular among the students. I think that in the Empire of Numbers, I think there was I think there was a professional jealousy among like my teachers and other people studying in the same realm.
Okay.
Because,
I like that a lot.
She was a bit, she used her fame, Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. I also feel like, as we described earlier, if the Empire of Numbers is mostly dealing in, stone and wood and, incredibly inventive physics-based machinery, there's something too easy about the asshole who just like flies in on a cloud skimmer and like gives a cool flashy presentation and then flies away. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, sure, if you have all that, but we don't want that. So
yeah,
just angrily flicking their abacuses in frustration. All right, love it. So this is legitimately exciting for you, and I think also, Eta, one of the first times that you actually have information that you would have liked to have shared with your peers. We've established, I think, that you were a bit of a loner. I think we've used the Scrooge metaphor before, like young Scrooge just being like, no, shut up, Fezziwig. I got to work on the books. I can't meet Clara tonight. But you certainly weren't like antisocial. I just think there were a few times where you and your peers wanted some. So I think, Eta, you're a little actually surprisingly in this cabin as the rain falls and rises. You're a little bit homesick. You've been betrayed, and that, you were set up and that something is rotten in the state of the Empire of Numbers. But this is the first time I think you've realized, as often we do when we travel, that you had ties to home that weren't as apparent. Because neither Duncan nor Makka can be nearly as excited about Sylvia Tome as they perhaps should be. Do you actually rest, or are you too hyped up?
I think Eta is practical enough that she forces herself to calm.
Okay, but it's rest. Like a sleeping the night before Christmas as a child, knowing there will be toys in the morning.
Yeah, so she knows she going to sleep will like make it come faster. Yes, okay. So she's trying really hard to go to sleep.
Amazing. All right, great. Duncan, how did you spend your rest? And also, you mentioned a short rest previously. Do you want to take a short rest or a long rest? You have options for both.
I think Duncan would be fine with resting as long as people want. The party that crashed in this thing crashed 2 weeks ago. Like 4 or 5 hours isn't going to make a difference in the hunt. We're not on like strict stuff.
Cool.
So
I'd say let's call this a long rest so you can actually properly heal up. More importantly, get rid of the exhaustion. And I think realistically, with just how punishing the weather is, you would be inclined to take proper breaks, right? This isn't like it's fine, we'll just muddle through. It's like this is legitimately exhausting, and whether you volunteered that or if Makka just like observing all of your states of distress just kind of quietly decided to extend it, I think is kind of up to you guys. But so knowing that it's a long rest, then Duncan, what did you get up to?
So obviously there'd be like the watch trade-off. I feel like we'd do that. We don't need to go into a long thing about it. What he would do, generally speaking, to be sleeping. He was only lightly toasted, so I don't think he has to like the traditional kind of like wounds that needed to be patched up. The other thing he would probably do on his watch is go into the crew quarters and find what other kind of coats and slickers may or may not be available. And then what he would like to do is basically take his coat as it exists and then attach to the bottom in like a balloon pants way, so that the coat goes all the way down and wraps around the ankles of his boots. So when water sprays upwards, it doesn't like hit him in the crotch anymore. There's pants built into the coat, so it's like a jumper almost.
Cool. Yeah.
And I feel like he'd do the same thing for Ida. I'm imagining she took hers off.
Sure. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe we'll say the easiest way to do that is you don't find much by way of rainproof gear. It would seem that as with what you've already observed, they took most of what they had with them. So you find some the only ones you do find are ruined and I think probably belong to the 2 dead gnomes who are wrapped outside. So I think rather than being able to like properly parachute pants it into like some weird inflated spaceman suit, you're instead able to kind of do what like bike couriers do, which is just like wrap off your pant legs a bit and kind of like use the strips to create a bit of a seal. And we'll say maybe adding like a bit of extra material so that you'll be wet but you won't be soaking anymore. So I will give you advantage now on survival checks because you've retrofitted yourselves with additional supplies you didn't previously have. You're still going to get wet, but it's like you've done the best you can from an improvised survivalist perspective to like at least reduce the discomfort. Going from like soft wet to like uncomfortably soggy, that important spectrum. Cool. Okay, I like that. Makka, what? How do you spend your downtime?
I think actually some of it might have been dealing with the corpses outside.
Sure. Yep.
Gentle repose and things like that. Tending to any wounds that it looks like rest wouldn't heal. I know Ita kind of got the worst of it out there. So I would probably cast like cure wounds there and
sure.
See to her. Yep. And then I would want to take care of myself insofar as I would want to rest up to make sure that I can, cast spells at maximum effectiveness the next day as well. So I would make sure that I got like enough rest.
Good. All right. So a generally restful time. In terms of being on watch, Ryan, you'd mentioned that you guys wanted to do that. It's a bit of an odd watch because you see these lightning creatures drop from the sky with great regularity, but they're not hunting for you. Can you roll me a perception check, Ryan? With you don't need the disadvantage anymore because this will be over. I imagine Makka, being the non-exhausted party, would probably take first watch, so this will be on your watch.
Yeah, I mean that's a 7. Got to make those pants, right? Fuck.
Well, if we do this right, our crew might just have a new pair of parachute pants.
Well, I think, no, this would make sense to me in that he'd be looking for stuff that was a direct threat to them, probably not watching patterns in the distance.
Yep. Makka and Ita, when you were on your watch, do you think you would be trying to... I mean, Ita, I feel like you can't help but look for patterns. Makka, I think we'll say on yours you probably weren't because you were dealing with the bodies.
Yeah.
So Ida, if you could also please roll me... I'm going to go with Arcana this time because I think your version wouldn't be I'm just going to keep an eagle eye out in case of threats. It would be, I need to mathematically understand these weird chaos monsters.
How adroit is this analysis?
Our adroit.
20 total.
Is this analysis? A very adroit President Kennedy.
I realized what's really funny is when I first started describing adroit analysis, I was calling it adroit analysis. And it was just because like I was stuck in like a French phase with Ida. And I'm like, we pronounce it adroit. Anyways.
She can call it adroit though.
Yeah, it's true. It's great, baby. Anything's possible.
It's weirder when I say it as Laura. Like, that's not right.
Yeah, very rarely does Ida in combat yell, I'm going to do a droit analysis. It's like, nah, she does the analysis and then says things.
Yep.
I have to say, I do have like French words go through my head when I'm looking for words as Ida. It's weird. Anyway,
I mean, feel free to word vomit those at any time. As anyone who speaks any amount of languages beyond their first will tell you, like, yes, it's that all the time. And, you know,
that'll mean this show includes more French than Blood and Syrup, which is set in Montreal.
I told you, you all drank the magic syrup that let you speak in French the whole time in the same way that Snake Eater is all in Russian, and they comment on it a couple times to justify it, because I hate when people are doing accents in a place where they would be speaking their own language. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Go ahead and roll, Laura. And again, if you have a skill you'd rather use, if you would like to use your adroit analysis, that's totally fine.
No, baby, I got the 20 total.
But not natural. So that's actually a disappointment coming from you in this particular session.
I know. And that was with double expertise too.
After chirping Ryan about no double 30s and getting exactly double 30s, I'm learning to zip the lip on these particular cases.
Yeah, we can't taunt Tom and he can't taunt the dice.
Apparently not. Yeah, that's on me. Damn you, averages. With that, Laura, what Ida notices is the when the lightning creatures come down. Also, what would you guys like? What would you label these lightning creatures as? I feel like in the same way that one thing I think that the Walking Dead TV show did that was very, very smart was have every single culture they encounter called a zombie something else, because everyone because the conceit is that zombies, quote, quote, don't exist in pop culture in that world. So they all had to come up with their own name. I feel like I've just been calling them lightning monsters out loud because you wouldn't know what these things are. What do you think as a team you would eventually start to call them?
Duncan,
I'm happy to take like 3 pitches. I'm happy to just be like, someone did it and everyone follows, whatever you want.
Duncan would have started calling them bolts because there's lightning bolts. So it would feel like that'd be on the ground.
That would be fine. Makka probably before that, I think might have even said like an elemental or something like that, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to Makka.
Or bolters. It could be bolts. That's fine.
Bolters is going to take me to a 40k realm, so bolts is going to be easier to say
that's
fantasy.
true.
Suddenly, the lightning has more skulls and spikes on it. The Adeptus lightning
bolters.
Yeah. Great. So bolts. So in watching the behavior of the bolts, you notice, and I think this might actually be something you're actually working out on paper, where it's like you are just properly analyzing, like just taking down as you would observing nature, just like, okay, so a bolt comes down, either it subdivides as you saw in the woods earlier, or it doesn't. It seems to almost patrol the area it's dropped into, and that search seems to be very, very intense. But then it dissipates over time. But the important thing for you is you're not seeing predatory behavior from these bolts. They are certainly patrolling, but there's no sense that they're tracking you or looking for footprints or tracks or anything else. They seem to be very focused on wherever they drop. You're getting a bit of a Century vibe from them, that they seem to be not guarding anything in particular because they hit the ground and just kind of wander around, but it's very much a Century attitude of like patrolling the area until their energy dissipates. To you, it looks very wasteful and very chaotic.
Yeah.
Which is odd because there must be the fact of these things and what they're doing suggests an intelligence, but
Yeah.
the placement is entirely random.
Mhm.
But the good news for what that means for your watches and for future hunkering down is they won't actively track you. So if you do tuck in somewhere and you make yourselves kind of inconspicuous, as you did in Sylvia's quarters, you can kind of like the watches can actually be a little bit lapse because you're actually
Right.
only watching for these things to like drop on the ship, which they probably have over the course of, the 8 hours you spend. But if everyone just tucks away, they kind of wander around and then fuck off.
Mhm.
So yes, that is the learning from your watch. Duncan misses it because he is dedicated to making good pants.
Cool. I would tell them for sure. That's just like so I'm sure that you have all noticed, but just to ensure that we are on the same page, so to speak, these bolts, there seems to be an intelligence behind them, but perhaps they are not seeking specifically us out. They seem to be more like guarding something, seem to be just general protecting the area they appear in. I do not believe they are seeking out us to destroy. They seem to be rather neutral when it comes to what they will attack, if it were. So whether it is someone directing them to do it or some sort of, I don't know, if you were automated system, I am unaware.
All right. So that, methodology kind of unimportant, weirdly enough, from our opinion. Do you think that they could be being launched down to look for Sylvia in them, or is there something they're defending that perhaps we should be looking for? Or should we just keep traveling onto the observatory and see if Sylvia's made it there?
I wonder if perhaps they are defending the observatory, or perhaps the whole valley?
Okay, I was kind of asking you to guess, and then you just gave two other theories. Do you think it's those? I'm trying to figure out what our next steps should be.
I have
Sword
no
lightning?
further information.
Okay, yeah, I'm done talking to you. Makka, do you think we should go to the observatory, or should we try to see what the lightning things are protecting, the bolts?
We know that this observatory is inaccessible. We may do well to try and track and follow the survivors of this crash. Yes, this vessel which held a supposed key to the observatory.
Yes, I'm guessing they would head towards the observatory myself. And if they've had 2 weeks, they very well may have made it there with that key. So in the direction of the observatory, but looking for any hint or trackable trace of the party from the ship.
Yes.
Indeed, that would seem the logical next step. I interject from outside where you've ignored me now.
Great. Here's that. Do you know what? It's a weird thing, Ita, but I feel like we're getting more out of you telling us what's a good idea or not if I ask him questions, because then you just seem to be freed up to think instead of respond.
That is an astute observation.
All right, well, we'll keep doing that in future. Just know that I'm not trying to offend you when I talk to Makka. It seems like this is a good conversational vibe for us.
Fair enough.
Are we all ready to move out?
Oh yeah, Ita, I made you these pants. They're really good. I sort of got distracted by how good they are.
Ita, a very quick glance at them suggests that yes, these are in fact very good pants for the weather conditions you're facing. It's an easy, again, purely logically, yes, having tapered, having a seal at your boots would be very handy.
Duncan, this is fantastic and precisely what is needed. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Makka, shall you lead the way again there, friend?
Yes. There is something I would like to attempt, perhaps a more direct way of finding the survivors of this crash.
All right.
Tom, I would like to cast Locate Creature.
Ooh, okay. Talk me through that. And what are you trying to locate?
So
Sylvia?
I can describe or name a creature that is familiar to me. I sense
like
the
to describe
direction.
Sylvia Tome's body, but not head.
I can sense the direction to the creature's location as long as that creature is within 1,000 feet of me. If the creature is moving, I know the direction of its movement. Spell can locate a specific creature known to me, or the nearest creature of a specific kind. So I think, I don't think a small trinket with a smashed-in face is enough for Makka to know.
I would agree.
Sylvia.
Yep.
But if he were to say, I am looking for gnomes, I'm hoping that will be sufficient. I'll just let you know a little bit more here. The spell can locate a specific creature known to you or the nearest creature of that specific kind, such as a human or a unicorn. So long as you have seen that, those are the examples they give.
I love it. I would never want any examples other than human or unicorn. Those are the two extremes.
So long as you have seen such a creature up close, within 30 feet, at least once, if the creature you described or named is in a different form, such as being under the effects of a polymorph spell, this spell doesn't locate the creature. The spell can't locate a creature if running water at least 10 feet wide blocks a direct path between you and the creature.
So I've been doing some Googling to determine how much 1,000 feet is.
300
it's actually, it's not a ton. So
we've got a half kilometer in a circle with you at its middle.
Yeah. Makka, can you roll me a religion check? Because I will tell you, the gnomes are not within that range.
Okay.
But given the way that your spells work, I am inclined to give you the benefit of, in vaguely gross terms, if they're shedding skin cells and things along the way, and you're using like weird bacterial magic, like it would seem to me that you may not be able to use it as effectively, but you would at least get some hint as to where you're going.
Dare we call it cluster vision?
Cluster vision. It's Paul Bettany and Tyler Hewitt.
Yeah. It's a 10.
Okay.
For religion.
So yet again, Makka, you find yourself reaching out through the cluster and finding great strength and ability there, but not with the usual wave of Jossie that you can kind of feel pushing it. Mechanically, I do want to underline that this is not necessarily because that isn't here, because you've been drawing on Jossie the whole time despite Jossie being tainted. But in terms of where your head is at, you're just not the I don't think Makka considers himself a man of faith, because faith is irrelevant to kind of the just, but in the way that like people who have utter faith, like unquestioning faith, do just take it as a point of fact. So what's weird is even though you aren't like a man of faith per se, you do lean on just that belief that Jossie is guiding things, and without that you're now slightly off balance. So you cast out the net. You aren't able to pull an exact direction. That said, the fact that they aren't within that range is in and of itself information, because you can see the nice thing about the Spirits Observatory is similar to the Sand Tower. It is visible from anywhere you could be in this valley. It's kind of the point. So it's further than that. It's a few kilometers away.
Okay.
But that also suggests that the gnomes aren't close, which is somewhat helpful.
Okay. I will close my eyes and try to concentrate and visualize a gnome, one of the many gnomes that I've met. And when kind of nothing comes back, I'll just turn to the group and say,
the surviving gnomes are out of range of my perception. We will have to seek physical evidence of where they went, or operate on the hunch that they did indeed go to the observatory.
All right, so we know a direction and we've got things to look out for. Let's do this.
Shall I endow you with protection from the lightning now? Its potency lasts only for an hour.
I would say let's wait, and then if we're going to face off with a creature, hit me with it right then.
Yes. This is wise. Good.
Makka will lead. Makka will start walking out.
All right. So together you force your way back out into the storm. There's a special kind of hell when you've been like super wet for a really long time, and then you get just dry enough that you remember what not being wet was like, and then immediately step back out into the rain, and it's the pants help, but it is unpleasant. And with that, you begin to attempt to track the gnomes on their way. Meanwhile, back at Doc Malvern's clinic, Gwendolyn, you've had some time with the clinic. Now, there aren't any other patients at present. So you've actually had some time just with Nev and Bleep and Doc Malvern. I'm curious what Gwendolyn's strategy here is. Is it you've expressed earlier the interest, which I think is very valid, of Gwendolyn has come up against resistance to the idea of the Alliance of Equals for the very first time. And it's actually kind of strange because to this point in your experience, it's been such an overwhelmingly positively received thing, and or just a completely like, no, fuck that. I hate that for like, there's never been this weird kind of thanks, but no thanks because reasons response. You also realize, and it's also kind of new for you, that you'd never heard of an alliance of this nature aside from the sort of alliance of the living against the dead in the war against Asher and his Necrotus forces. So you realize there are some things to learn, and there are some questions that you have that you perhaps didn't have previously about kind of the nature of these previous alliances. And also, as we've talked about, you're now also contending with like the actual burden of command, which is an exhausting nightmare. So I'm curious what Gwendolyn is doing and kind of what she's kind of hoping to ascertain. Then I'll tell you what's sort of going on in the clinic.
Sure. So I think two things. First, she wants to know why the previous alliance failed, because she does not want to repeat the same mistakes. And secondly, she would want, so whether that's like chatting with people or, if there's a library. No, so basically
if there
just chat
was,
with
it's just like a bunch of wet napkins. It's a bummer.
And she would want to talk with Doc Malvern if the doctor was receptive about what her idea of like her ideal like cooperative society would look like. It could even like basically just like open to like, okay, pretend there are no nations. Like,
okay, interesting.
She's curious to see what an ideal society looks like, because to her it was just like, oh yeah, all these different people separate but cooperating.
Who do you go to first, or how would you go about this?
Bleep.
Bleep. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gwendolyn, you find Bleep. You actually catch him unawares, and he is sitting in what probably at some point would have been like the employee like coat closet in the sort of welcome center. And as you walk in, he's actually got a desk set up, and there are a number of painstakingly handwritten. I mean, it's fantasy time, so everything is. But you can see a number of documents written in an incredibly scratchy hand. And he has set up a little, almost like a little alcove of papers. And he has a couple of old, very, very worn books. And you realize as you step in, there are no windows in this closet, and that it actually might be the most paper secure spot in the clinic. As you walk in, you actually hear him muttering to himself, just saying like, no, of course, because right, the orcish system would reject that particular herb because of the naturally allergenic nature. So I would need to swap in perhaps a concoction if I altered it that. Damn it! And he just kind of like sweeps a paper out of his way. You see him write down on a list that as you kind of slowly sneak into the room, you can see is listed as things to ask Doc. He writes like replacement for mint-based tinctures. And it's a pretty long list. He's crossed out a few, but it's kind of long. And he just kind of sits back into his chair. And you can see his wings weirdly like arc and spike up in kind of a what you would imagine tense shoulders would be if you had a second set of shoulders you had to contend with.
Right.
He has not yet noticed you. What do you do?
I give a little like knock on the wall.
And he just kind of turns around, hello. And he like quickly tries to, mop up his desk a little bit, but realizing it's a lost cause, just kind of sighs and turns and says, Your Highness, welcome. Sorry, I was just getting some studying in. You'll have to, excuse me, do you need something? Do you, and his eyes kind of dart back and forth in an adorable monkey way. And it just says, do you need food or drink?
No, not at all. I'm really sorry to disturb you.
No, please disturb away. I hate this. He closes a book with frustration.
Wait, what do you hate?
And he just kind of gestures to, this is all of it. I'm sorry. I'm studying things that are a little bit beyond my understanding, and it's very frustrating.
Oh, don't I hear that?
Wait, seriously? You're a princess, though?
Yeah, but I found out that there's so much that I don't know. And Duncan tries to teach me stuff, and I've been basically trying to undo a lot of education I've had.
Okay, right?
Right.
Look, and he kind of looks around conspiratorially and kind of gets up, and he, at this point he's not flying. You can tell he's kind of stressed, so he instead just monkey climbs over some things, just hangs off like a coat hook, and he's like, okay, yeah, thank you for saying that. No one ever says that, and it's driving me completely fucking crazy. I am trying to learn all of Doc Malvern's practice, and everybody is so crazy and different. Why can't there just be a universal body? It would be so much easier for me.
Right. Well, that kind of segues into a nice point, is that there are so many different peoples, right? And we kind of want to find a way for everyone to work together,
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful tapestry, but it's a fucking exhausting one to have to study from a medical perspective.
Yeah. But the thing is, the important part about learning is free flow of information and cooperation. And clearly there used to be cooperation here, and that all kind of went to shit, apparently.
Yeah, that's what the doc tells me.
Yeah, do you know what happened there? What went wrong?
What in terms of what went wrong with the doc? And with his people? Because in terms of this,
that too.
I was born in this valley, so or at least I think I was. I don't really have any memories from back then, but I've just kind of been here as long as I can remember.
Right. So perhaps this would be. I would love to ask the doc about this, but I'm want to be a bit sensitive, because this seems to be a bit of a sore subject, and I certainly don't want to cause more pain.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. From what I've seen, the doc, he's actually pretty good about talking about hard stuff. But I think you got to approach it in the right way. I don't know too much about what happened. I think Nev knows a bit more because, he's a little bit more worldly than your humble winged monkey here. But the doc is he's had a bit of a rough go with things, but he's kind of at peace with it. You just got to be careful about how you approach it. You know, he's been burned a few times by trust. So just you can ask him though. I mean, he's an old guy and he knows his time's limited. So he's pretty intent on sharing what he knows. And then like Bleak just gestures at all the scratchy documents. He's like he's taken the time to write all of this for me, because he believes I can do it and I can do something with it. And that was a lot. I took a lot out of him, and it was a lot of work for a guy who doesn't have too much time left. But he did it because I think he really wants to make sure that whatever difference he's made and whatever he knows can be of use. So I think you can ask him. Just be careful because he's had a hard go. It sounds like you have too. I was kind of thought Princess has kind of had it made in the shade, but it sounds like you've kind of had a bad ride of it too. So maybe he'll respond to that.
I mean, it was pretty good up until like a little while ago, and then I got stabbed, but that's fine.
Wait, you got stabbed?
Yeah.
Do you need me to like take a look at it? And then he like, you can just tell he like absolutely has no clue what he would even do with armor that's been stabbed. But he also is just like, sadly, like he knows he has to be a doctor someday. So it's just like, his tiny little monkey hands.
I said, no, you're great. And I kind of like bang on my chest. Just kind of like ding, ding, ding. It's like, it's fine.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. Well, one kind of magical being to another. Great. But yeah, you'd have to ask him. I can tell you stuff about what we do here. And I can tell you a little bit about the doc and about Nev, certainly. But and if you want to know the doc's story, I think you best ask him.
Right. Well, I mean, that's really helpful. I mean,
thank you.
You're quite a pleasant person to talk to. So
thank you. I got to roll a check for him. He actually kind of looks away and then narrows his eyes and says, I think that might have been part of the reason I was made.
Wait, what?
And he kind of like shakes his head. He says, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get glimpses of me before all this. And I don't know, something you just said there, pleasant to talk to. I think that was part of it. Huh.
Did someone change you?
And he just like shrugs in a hilarious monkey way. And he says, I don't know about any other creatures like me anywhere, really. And I've just kind of always been here. So I feel like someone had to at some point have done something. But yeah, it's fine. I got my life here. I'm studying with the doc. I've got a partner in Nev. Things are fine. So I'm figuring it out as I go, but I'm also not too worried about it.
Well, I mean, I guess that's all right then.
Yeah, I think so. Wish they'd created me with knowledge of medicine. Would have really saved me some time. And he just gestures at all the notes.
Right. Well, I mean, thanks for sharing.
Oh yeah, anytime. Honestly, anything to that'll take me away from having to do the work I'm supposed to be doing, I will happily do anytime. And then he leans in. He's like, anytime.
Right. I may ask for your assistance later.
Cool. All right. Good luck, princess. And he flits over, sits down on his chair, takes a big deep breath in, breathes out, and then just opens the book again, and clearly is re-looking at the same passage he was trying to figure out. And with that, Gwendolyn, it might be time to go talk to Dr. Malvern.
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hamstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crowd's logo was created by the brilliant Decapitated Markers. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christian Menicola, the Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield, Lord of Bradovic, Noel Lewis, Scott Garland, Anthony Griffin, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Cade Peters, Richard Cranium, Anna Zed, Eric Williams, Logan Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Cameron Ezel, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.